All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning and welcome to today's webinar, Transition and Exit Planning, the Why, When, and What. I'm Ruthie Ditzler, TAO's Marketing and Regional Program Coordinator, and I'm joined by Justin Martinez, who will be helping out on the back end of our Zoom event today. A couple of rules of engagement before we start. Everyone's been muted. And please remain on mute unless a TAO staff member unmutes on you or the moderator calls on you to talk. You may ask or respond to questions in the chat box, publicly or privately, by directing your message to me or to Suzanne from Acumen. We'll monitor the chat box and we can respond throughout the discussion. And you can also engage using the participant icon on your screen to raise your hand or give a thumbs up during the presentation. Please engage with us on social media during this call and throughout the day. We love to share what's happening at TAO and to get participant takeaways from our events. And a huge thank you to Ideal Business Transition Solutions for underwriting this conversation. We appreciate their support of the TAO community. And finally, it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's webinar, President of Acumen Executive Search, Suzanne Hannafin. Suzanne, the mic and the screen are yours.
Wonderful. Let me go ahead and pull up the screen. Ruthie, can you pull that up for me? Because it says I'm currently sharing it as is. I was going to say I can stop sharing screen and restart it. So let me start again. So again, thank you, Ruthie, and thank you, the team at TAO, for helping us put this together. As Ruthie said, I am Suzanne Hannafin with Acumen Executive Search, and I was asked to moderate this for my coworker and great friend, Karen Anderson, who is so passionate about business transitions, and hopefully you'll get a lot of takeaways from today's presentation. So today, let's start by, if I can, there we go. To do a really fast introduction of the team at IBTS. So Karen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. As Suzanne mentioned, I've been partnered with Suzanne since Acumen's beginning 14 years ago, and we find great leaders that are a cultural fit for our company clients. I love to help business owners achieve their goals, and you will hear later why Ideal Business Transition Solutions was created. I'm so passionate about the need to support our business owners out there.
Thank you, Karen. Nick?
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. As Susan mentioned, my name is Nick Blankel, and I'm with Concilium Wealth Advisory. We are a multifamily office serving multi-generational families and their businesses. So we provide the traditional services such as investment management, portfolio management, and financial planning. But in addition to those services, we provide succession and transition planning for family-owned businesses. And then finally, we coordinate and help implement family governance, or sometimes it's referred to as family meetings, with the focus on the development of a family's human, intellectual, social, and financial capital. That development is all for the express purpose of preserving and growing a family's wealth. So that is myself, Concilium, and I look forward to sharing with you guys today.
Thank you so much, Nick. And joining us today is also Layla McLean. Please introduce yourself.
Hi there, thanks for having us. I'm an estate planning and business attorney at Buckley Law, which is a full-service firm that offers legal counsel in family law, employment law, litigation, real estate, and other business matters. My practice focuses on estate planning and administration for taxable and non-taxable estates, business law and real estate transactions. And when it comes to estate planning, I take more of a collaborative approach toward the personal and financial goals of my clients, and in an effort to assist them with asset protection strategies that will secure their financial future and the financial future of their loved ones.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into this because I'm sure everybody wants to hear the insights, the pitfalls, and options. because I think most business owners and leaders don't think about all the options. And hopefully today they'll have a number of takeaways. So let's jump in. So Nick, you know, this is where I believe most business owners really, truly do need a team. And it starts with gathering that team of professionals and go through succession planning and thinking of how it all, you know, all the pieces put together. So Nick, really tell us about succession planning and this chart.
Right. Well, thanks again. So, you know, succession planning is a holistic approach to designing a business exit or a transition strategy that provides you as the owner with maximum value for your life's work. So it'll cover all the 8 points that we've listed here on the chart above, but really it encompasses, you know, simple objectives. They're key objectives, such as when do you want to leave the business? How much money do you need from a sale to ensure your financial security? And to whom do you want to sell the business to? So those are the kind of the 3 big questions. And then to accomplish this, you know, we start just how Suzanne mentioned that you start by forming an advisory team. So we include trusted professionals such as executive search, tax professionals, estate and business attorneys that can help guide and advise a business owner through the process. So that's kind of how it starts. It encompasses a lot of areas, but I think with various professionals, you get the right advice and you get options, which is key.
Absolutely, Nick. And the way that Karen and I have always put it is that there's really only 4 ways that a business owner can exit their company. They can grow from within, and or they can sell their business.
Right.
They can give their business away, or you can recruit for your successor. So Karen, share with us kind of more thoughts about that. Oh, you are on mute, Karen.
Sorry, audience, the facts are that 70% of companies do not have a plan. I find this really tough to digest. And the question is, are you the 70% or are you the 30% that has a plan?
Well put, Karen, because again, the benefits of planning ahead are numerous for both just the owner, their family, and also about the company and their employees. And you know, it's so interesting. We do so many transitions at Acumen that it's never really about the money. It's about creating and enhancing options and maybe leaving a legacy to others. So let's kind of jump into some of the common pitfalls. Karen?
Without a plan, the default plan applies. And if you don't have a plan, the state of Oregon has a plan for you. And I know that it will be seriously costly. So it's so critical to make a plan. Don't give it to the state to handle your business.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to kind of do a real life example here. We were called in at the 11th hour with a small company down in Southern Oregon. And the owner, the patriarch, was diagnosed terminally, and he didn't have a plan. So he reached out to Karen. We were able to find a CFO to help navigate through this transition of Gen 1 to Gen 2. It ended in a very good light that now the company is soaring and doing incredibly well. But again, if there was a plan, the children would have been better prepared. They would have had this person in earlier. So I think it really does talk about the importance and, you know, why let the Oregon state, you know, or whatever state you're in dictate those terms for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as you said, the state will make these, you know, plans for you. And Karen, you have another story, a real passionate story of what made you pull together this team and to talk to companies about transitions. Will you share that with us?
Yes, this was early in my career in Honolulu, as a matter of fact. And the president of the company, Larry Hawkins, much beloved, One day he fell over and had a heart attack, which killed him. Not only were we all shocked, but Fern, his wife, who only ever came to the office to go to lunch with him, was so ill prepared, and there was no plan again. So Fern allowed her 3 executive team managers to run the company. And sadly, 18 months later, that company was sold for pennies on the pound or cents on the dollar. It was a tragic story, apart from the emotional upheaval that happened throughout the company. This could have been radically different if they had a plan.
Absolutely, Karen. So let's go to the next. I think we've scared everyone of saying get a plan, get a team. And so Nick, let's really talk about exit readiness, because I think this is where it all starts.
Yeah, that's right, Suzanne. It's really important to note that exiting one's businesses is not an event. It's a process. So for a successful exit to meet an owner's goals, both the company and the owner must be ready. For the company, that means it's a self-perpetuating organization that operates independent of the owner's involvement. And for the owner, that means that the net after-tax proceeds received will meet their needs in retirement, and that the owner has really a management plan in place to slowly and purposefully transition decision-making responsibilities to the management team. These are just a couple of considerations during the process, but all too often we hear, I'm not ready. It's going to, I'm thinking I want to sell when I'm 60 or something like that, and they're 55 today. And it's just kind of important to note that it takes a while to get all these pieces in order and make sure that they're ultimately the right pieces.
Absolutely, Nick. And again, when Karen and I go in and talk to organizations, we really do dive deep about owner readiness, because they have to be prepared both mentally, as well as that organization preparedness. So Nick, you work with companies all the time through transitions and succession plans. Share your focus and how the typical initial conversation goes.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier, the exit planning is a process, not an event. And because, with preparation comes options. So, as you can see on this chart, we've kind of distilled it down into a 6-step process, which initiates with an assessment and then ultimately culminates with a sale. So as an example, Consilium has been working with a plumbing and HVAC company in the Florida market for the last 18 months. And the owner themselves, they require about $10 million net upon sale to kind of meet their lifestyle and retirement needs. So 18 months ago, we valued the business at about $3.5 million, and he had about $1 million in liquid net personal assets. So we started working with the client, and in conjunction with the owner, we identified 2 large needs within his management team. The first being a controller, and the second being a VP of operations. So since they're hiring, there is greater financial and operational control, which has resulted in margins essentially doubling, and the organization maintaining its blistering growth rate of 20% annual growth rate. So because of the relatively tight-knit nature of the industry, and thankfully our clients' improvements in their operating performance, the company was approached by a strategic buyer, which is in fact backed by a private equity firm, and is now in a better position to meet the owner's needs of 10 million post deal. So if all goes well, hopefully they'll have an LOI in the next 6 weeks, and they can begin kind of the negotiation process. So, the point is that there's a lot on this chart, but the process is designed to make the company perpetual without the need for the owner to be involved in its day-to-day operational activity, and thus effectively providing the owner with options. The option to keep the business, the option to sell the business. But what's important to note is that both options have less involvement on the part of the owner on day-to-day activities. So, but one other aspect that's not evident from this chart is that for larger families who will have a large liquid net worth, we work with families on establishing governance, or sometimes these are referred to as family meetings. And these meetings provide a framework for joint decision-making and communication, as well as a collaborative vision for the family's future. So, these family meetings are conducted with the purpose of effectively perpetuating the family's liquid net worth, because we just don't want to see subsequent generations get into a situation where they feel that the money will always be there and they tend to spend it freely. So it's these types of things within the process that take time to implement and educate.
Yeah, perfect, Nick. Thank you so much for sharing, and especially that real example of the company you're working with today, because your comments truly ring true. We often get involved in this point when we find big holes or questions are raised in accounting, and sometimes it's about seeking out a new CFO or somebody else to look at that and then to work with you to create that plan.
Yes.
So this next slide, I think, is the critical slide that most business owners should take either a screenshot or ask us for the slides, because these are the 10 steps that really can help you in your return. So I'm going to leave it to you, Nick, to kind of walk us through some of it, and we'll dive deep later on.
Right. So, thank you for that question. It's so when we look at a business and we're preparing it for an ultimate sale or a transition, we're really looking at it through a risk mitigation lens. So as we're able to, as real or perceived risks are reduced, transaction multiples tend to increase. And these risk mitigation or value enhancing activities include such thing as, a diverse customer base, or something simple as eliminating your personal expenses through the business, with two of the most important being, strong financial controls and a strong management team.
Absolutely. So let's dive deeper in the strong financial controls, Nick, and we'll get to the strong management team coming up.
Okay. So, a company's income statement, their balance sheet, their cash flow statement, these are the instrument panel by which an owner and the management team navigate the business. So, first, get your financial procedures and practices in place so that your data is timely. One key example is with our client in Florida, their monthly financials weren't showing up till the 20th of the month. We're now coming in at the 7th. That the timeliness of the information allowed you to make decisions more quickly. Second, use the data to improve your financial performance. Just as I stated, if your data comes in 1 month late, 2 months late, it's really hard to make adjustments to the business to improve profitability. And third, be poised to act quickly if a deal comes your way. And that's the importance of really having these three navigational instruments on your panel. So finally, once you have all these together, compare against plan, knowing how you got to your destination, what contributed or detracted from your goal is critical to establishing objectives for the next phase of your either family's growth, or what we're talking about today is your business growth. So, and it's important to note that this is a reiterative process. We all heard about writing business plans on an annual basis and marketing plans, but it truly is. And what I'm talking about here is almost on a monthly basis or quarterly basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the second major point that you brought up in that slide is the strong management team. Karen, this is where we are usually brought in. Can you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. To Nick's point, first get your financial procedures and priorities in place so data is timely. Second, use that data to improve your financial performance. And third, be poised to react quickly and thoroughly if a deal comes in.
Absolutely. So let's dive deeper and actually give people some real life experience of examples.
Absolutely. Well, actually, just 6 months ago, we placed a chief operating officer who was also a great cultural fit for a client that wanted to exit as a working president a CEO, excuse me. This client needed to prepare a successor, and timing was really based on when the COO was ready to assume that role. And just this month, that COO, just 6 months later, was promoted to president. And this is a great example of successfully hiring for your successor. Now, organizations and owners have two knowns prior to hiring their successor: timeline, or estimated timeline that they would like for transitioning from CEO to president. And does he or she want to retain a portion of the business? Then perform a third-party valuation with financial audit to determine the actual worth of your business today. Then decide about the structure of your deal, how much stock or percentage is in play, how to transfer that stock. Most successors put their bonus or portion of the bonus into a fund that at the end of the vesting schedule, they can use that money to purchase the stock at the valuated price noted above. Now, if the successor reaches certain KPI and milestones, additional stock is then granted. And most successors are given a percentage upfront that will vest over time. If there is a downturn, quarterly bonuses payouts are not issued. And so here are a couple examples of recent success stories regarding the Recruit for Your Successor program. How to transfer that stock. Working with an attorney and financial planner that knows how to structure these deals is absolutely critical. You know, once you've got those that plan in place, most companies take out additional key man insurance policies to protect both parties, which we'll hear about later. And at the end of the vesting period, the current average of this process is about 2 to 5 years. It's well worth preparing 5 years ahead. The key man will become the CEO or majority shareholder at the time agreed. And for example, a distribution company that we helped find a successor, the single owner with approximately 24 million in revenue. He was in his late 50s and looking at funding his retirement. Acumen had a COO, hired a CEO from similar background with great experience, and the agreement and timelines were then developed with the transition team. February was the 4th year and 20% of the ownership was transferred. And within those 4 years, revenue grew to 48 million, yes, from 24 to 48 million, with new customers, better efficiencies in an ERP system. Buyouts were based on the original evaluation, so this is great. The owner took his first trip in years, and then over the next 10 years, that COO, now president, will continue to pay owner every quarter to fund his retirement. And after the next 10 years, 100% of the ownership will be transferred.
Yeah, that was an incredible story about, again, helping this business owner retain a piece to fund his retirement, to give him options, and what a success story. It's pretty what's the word I'm thinking of? Straightforward, because there was one owner.
Absolutely.
But let's complicate things. We just had one that had 3 owners. Walk us through that.
It was a $100 million in revenue company with 3 owners, all, one in their upper 60s and the rest to the low 70s. One of the owners had a stroke, and they hired a general manager. They thought they had a manager in play. He was in his 40s and being mentored, but sadly, he was diagnosed with a terminal illness, which really threw a spanner in the works. So we hired a general manager with his bonuses going to buy out the third partner over a 2-year vesting period. And then similar structure of buying the others out to transfer the ownership over time, vesting over to earn 25%. And 25% of the owners one shared, and then the bonus over time will be finalized at 33% of the total. The general manager started in October and is currently doing great. But in summation, once you know where you stand financially and personally, we can then recruit for either the successor or the key man, COO, VP, or president. Remember, this handoff process can take time. So truly, you need to plan ahead.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those two examples with us, Karen, because I think, you know, when you talk about key man, which I hate that, it's a key person, but I want to dive down because a lot of people don't understand this tool that can be used and used beautifully. So Nick, I'm going to turn it back over to you to really talk about the mechanics of it.
All right, wonderful, thank you. So, you know, key person insurance for us in our practice falls under what we call continuity planning, which is essentially risk mitigation for the unexpected. So we have a chart here that kind of lays out the cash flow to and from the insurance company at initiation and from the insurance company to the business. But, you know, insuring against key person loss is really instrumental in protecting all the stakeholders of the company, including your family, employees, and vendors. So the purpose of key person insurance is to place cash on the balance sheet to help the company survive the loss of a rainmaker or strategic leader. And, you know, with that, the payouts are usually tax-free. The company can use the insurance proceeds for expenses until they find or train a replacement, especially if it's a key strategic thinker, and present the company from a position of financial strength, which is important and critical to retaining key talent and customer retention. So, there are a few other options. So, if necessary, the proceeds can be used to pay off debt, distribute money to investors, pay severance to employees, or close the business down in an orderly manner. But, for us, when we're using key person insurance, it's really risk mitigation to protect the owner and his family so that we ensure that the value and the ultimate net proceeds of a business are retained by the family.
Yeah, and you were a little fuzzy, at least on my end, and
Okay.
I think you said that the insurance it's not taxable, or the payout is.
Correct. Payouts are usually tax-free. That is correct.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. Most people don't understand that. And so again, this is a tool to be used in protecting the owner, protecting the family, but also protecting that key person as
Right.
well. If something were to happen to the owner of the organization. Absolutely. So we can't do any of the stuff above that we kind of reviewed without help from an attorney. And at this point, I would love to hear from Layla some insights from you.
Thanks, Suzanne. So this cartoon is hopefully generating some laughs as it's meant to, but despite the humor in it, this is a very real scenario for many people that come into our offices. As Karen and Suzanne previously mentioned, if you don't have an estate plan or a plan for your business, the state of Oregon has a plan for you and will decide what happens with your estate and who will manage it at death or incapacity according to the default rules and laws. Typically, this is your spouse, children, or your closest living relative, which may or may not be the individuals that you would prefer manage or inherit your estate. History tells us that 30% of family businesses make it to generation 2, and only 5 to 10% make it to generation 3. Now, the next slide, which shows the typical estate planning documents that most people think of, such as a power of attorney, advance directive, and appointment of a person to handle the disposition of your remains. The other two boxes, being a will or trust, are those that I'll focus on today. So wills and trusts are different in many respects, but the key differences that tend to matter the most for business owners are how those two documents are used at death. And most people think that I have a will, there's no probate, or you know, everything's fine and will be handled outside of a court. That's wrong. So if you have a will, there's a probate, and if you don't have a will or trust, there is also a probate. And probate is a court process that oversees the administration of your estate. And this is important to know for most business owners because probates are public record. And so any Joe Schmo can do a simple Google search through the public records or go down to the local courthouse and get a copy of your will and other probate documents and see exactly what the terms of those are. Probates also require publication in a local newspaper, alerting creditors and other individuals of your death. And most importantly, a probate requires an inventory, and that has to be filed within 90 days. And the inventory lists all of your assets and the fair market value of those assets as of the date of your death. And, you know, this matters to most people, and particularly business owners, because number one, the terms of your will are really no one's business. And most people don't want the appraised value of their business made public because the disclosure of that information can really have a tremendous impact on the sale of the business or the purchase price, that someone's willing to offer. Typical probates also take quite a bit of time. We're looking at 8 to 12 months in non-COVID times. And as most people know, courts have been shut down. And so during that time, you have very limited options in terms of what you can do in managing an estate. Now, trust, on the other hand, is effective the moment that you sign it. And it is essentially a set of instructions for how your money and property is to be used while you're alive and have all of your marbles, what happens upon your incapacity, and then again at death. So a trust, unlike a will, doesn't involve any court process. There's no public disclosure of the terms of the will. There's no probate, no publication in a newspaper, and the value of your assets and your estate is kept private. And so, you know, for this reason, most business owners and other individuals these days prefer a trust over a will just for privacy reasons. Yeah. Now, one thing to consider is if you have a will or a trust, are the individuals named in those documents consistent with your current intent and your current wishes? And when's the last time you looked at your will? Clients come in every day with significant wealth and wills that were done in 1978 when their children were 3 to 5 years old, and none of the individuals they've named are living or applicable anymore. Neither are the terms of their wills. And so, you know, if that's the case, maybe it's time to consider updating those and think about, you know, who you're naming in your documents. Are those the people that you want to inherit your business, and are they capable of running the business or preparing it for a sale? And, you know, another consideration is if you've really built this successful business, are there key employees who contributed to that success that you want to reward at death or upon the sale of your business? Hoping that your family is going to carry out your wishes as you said to them. If those are not in an estate planning document, is poor planning and often does not happen and is not executed in the way that you would have dreamed it would. Now, I won't dive into the nuances of tax law because I don't want to put everyone to sleep. But there are a few key numbers and a 20,000-foot view that I'll share. So the Oregon estate tax is different from the federal estate tax. And the Oregon estate tax allows you to pass $1 million tax-free at death. Now, just because you're married, this doesn't mean that you get to pass $2 million tax-free at death unless you have the appropriate tax planning language in your documents. Okay. Unlike Oregon, the federal estate tax allows you to pass $11.58 million at death, or $23.16 million tax-free for married individuals who, again, have the right language in their documents. Now, the federal estate tax rate is 40%, 40, and the Oregon estate tax rate is a growing percentage of between 10 and 16 based on the value of your estate at death. And most importantly, these taxes are due 9 months from the date that you die. And that begs the question, does your estate have the cash or liquidity to pay these taxes? And who makes the decisions about what assets will be sold? And are the same people who are inheriting the business or other assets, the same throughout your document? So if you've got one child inheriting the business and the other children inheriting the real property, how do you manage the payment of those taxes, and what has to be, sold or liquidated first? And payment of estate taxes, in my experience, is one of the biggest issues. And the last thing you want to do is put your head in the sand and leave it to your poor family to have to make these really tough decisions. And the key factor here is really just know what your plan is or should be, and get it done or update it. I'll give you a real life example that will help to kind of illustrate the how things can go wrong. Okay, so I recently completed a case in which a woman owned 50% of a fourth generation family business. She owned this business with her sibling. They had inherited it and had one minor child. So she, like many individuals, thought, I don't need to pay an estate planning attorney. I can download this will form online or this Susie Orman estate planning documents and fill them out, and they are going to do exactly what I need them to do. Wrong. So she got this DIY will executed and left everything, and the will left everything to her minor child outright. Since by law, minors cannot inherit, we had to then, in addition to probating this will, petition the court for a conservatorship of the minor child's estate. And that's a person who manages the assets or inheritance until the child is legally allowed to do that for him or herself. So the surviving parent of this minor child and the person named in this DIY will didn't get along. And so father objected to every proposed action that we set forth. And when that happens, the court says, fine, if you can't get along, we'll appoint somebody for you. And so at that point, we had to then negotiate on finding and nominating a third-party conservator to manage this minor child's estate. So obviously, in that case, there's tremendous cost involved, particularly when everyone is fighting and the minor child's inheritance or estate is paying for our fees as the probate lawyer, the conservator's lawyer, the conservator himself, and the minor child's lawyer, as well as the objecting parent's lawyer. So this is all coming out of this minor child's inheritance. They are paying for 4 different lawyers and a professional. Okay, so to make matters worse, because this was a 4th generation family business that had been run successfully in the past, they never saw the value in putting together their business organizational documents. And really those documents are a set of rules or instructions for how the business is to be run and operated. And without that, there's no guidance. And so the conservator, this third party, is now having to negotiate with this family member who's been running the business and a part of the business her whole life to come to some agreement as to the terms of how it's going to be run moving forward. And the surviving family member, the sibling, is now in business with a third-party professional, and in 7 years will be a co-owner with an 18-year-old child. Now, I don't know if how many of you have 18-year-old children, but I would not put an 18-year-old in charge of a business worth a few $1,000,000, nor would I want to be co-owners with an 18-year-old in a business that's generating a few $1,000,000. And so, of course, siblings fighting, probate, councils fighting, everyone's fighting, and the fees are just racking up at every turn. And this is not the way that we as attorneys like to earn our fees. And in this scenario, it costs the minor child 10 to 15 times what it should have otherwise if mom had just had a good estate plan that left everything in trust for the child, wherein we wouldn't have had to have noticed this surviving parent and given them all this information that they were able to receive or review because it was all a matter of public record. And having, spending $1,000 would have preserved this child's inheritance. And more likely than not, extended the life of the money and the use of the funds, because at 18, most beneficiaries, in my experience, they go out and buy a Corvette or a lifted truck, a pile of Louis Vuitton handbags, they go to Mexico or trip around the world once or twice, and then the money's gone. And I've been told on more than one occasion by clients who inherited at a young age and have now come back full circle to our office, boy, I wish my parents had just held it for 10 more years, because I could have bought a house and paid it in full, and I could have made such better use of the money. But I was 18 and dumb and young and, didn't see the potential. And I think if 2020 has taught us anything, between, the politics and election, the protests, the wildfires across the West Coast, and COVID, it's plan for the unexpected and be prepared to respond to the unanticipated circumstances that you may find yourself in. And, the biggest family fights occur when there aren't clear instructions and we don't know who's doing what, or worse, when you've left your family with no instructions at all. And so, try to preserve family harmony where and when you can. And I tell my clients regularly, and at the end of every estate planning signing, tell your kids that you've already covered their Christmas gifts. This is the greatest gift you can leave them. And it's really the greatest gift is a good estate plan that makes clear what your wishes and intent are. And it will truly avoid the family fights that otherwise tend to occur.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Layla, for that. Because again, what we said earlier about it's not necessarily about the money. It's about preserving your legacy. It's about, creating harmony within families, and family extends to employees a lot of times. So thank you for that very much. I think at this point, hopefully we've given everybody a broad overview and really stressed, why it is so important to have a plan, why it's so important to bring a group of professionals together, because everybody has their own expertise. And just like anything in life, it's bringing those experts together and making your wishes known to make it easy. So I would love to open this up for any questions that people have. I'm not sure, Ruthie, if you're going to jump back on, but I just see a text right now in the chat to me, and it looks like it's geared towards Nick. So Nick, when is the best time to really start your exit planning?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in our experience, to achieve a successful departure, we recommend starting process 5 to 7 years before the owner anticipates an exit. So the 5+ years allows for value maximization through eliminating dependency on the business owner for day-to-day activities, development of a leadership team, such things as, allowing you to time the market for a successful sale. And in some cases, actually just some tax strategies, some simple things. We still run across companies that are C Corps that really should be S Corps, and you can save a lot of money on taxes by just structuring something as an S Corp versus a C Corp, which C Corps effectively have double taxation.
Oh, I think my dog is barking. Somebody, of course, knocks on my door. But here's another offer or another question I have. What should I do with unsolicited offers? Nick, do you want to take this also?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Thank you. So, technically, these are not offers, right? They're fishing expeditions on the part of acquirers who are looking to get into non-competitive bidding environments. So from my experience, there are really two types of unsolicited offers. Those that are from parties that are known and those that are from unknown parties. So if they are a known person, go to lunch, have a dialogue, find out what they're looking for, and see if you meet their criteria. And if it's a match for your needs. And then if they are unknown, which tends to be the case a lot today, which are those in the form, usually get these in the form of emails or phone calls that usually come from third-party intermediaries, and they're asking if you want to sell your business. So what I tend to recommend to clients is that they use the opportunity to ask questions about what the buyer is seeking in a potential acquisition. So ask them about the key metrics, revenue growth rates, EBITDA, number of employees, philosophies. So in other words, use the opportunity to gather intelligence. And finally, don't sign an NDA. They may not share the information with other outside parties, but that doesn't mean they can't use the information to compete against you and take advantage of the situation. So where they will show up asking for information, I ask that my clients, they flip tables and ask questions of them to get information. And then if you think it's a good fit, go from there. And please don't end up in a situation where it's just one buyer communicating with you. I would just say build the team and enter the business into an auction. That's the best way to ultimately have a successful exit.
Yeah, and I think it's about going back to those 10 items that really can help value and increase that value to that business owner.
Right.
Just what you said earlier, Nick, start early, get all your financial controls in place. And then it may be wise, as you point out, to actually kind of think about it from the other perspective, the buyers, and have a whole bunch of questions for just in case that comes up.
Yeah.
So I have another question that popped up, and it's Karen, I'm going to throw this one to you. How do I reward my top people as part of my exit plan?
Well, your key people are likely one of your company's most valuable assets, quite frankly. And without your key people, you likely cannot achieve a successful exit also. So many owners struggle with finding the right way to incentivize and reward key people without doing unintended harm. And too often, owners consider or pull the trigger on giving key employees ownership of the company because that's the only method they really know about. But there are many tools and tactics on how to reward top people and keep them up and beyond your own business exit.
Thank you, Karen. So Layla, I missed one. One question I didn't see that had come in, but this is directed to you. How do I sell my business to my key employees?
Good question. So selling your business to your employees can be incredibly rewarding, and it can also be incredibly difficult. First, I think that the business owner has to decide for him or herself, is the goal just to get out as quick as you can, or is the goal to really ensure the success of the business long term? Regardless of that, but I do think that the answer to either of those questions will dictate next steps. But regardless, I think that the first steps are are definitely to make sure that you have your organizational documents in place, that you have your financial documents or your financials, excuse me, are accurate and up to date. That the selling owner has an estate plan in place and other succession documents that will address the unanticipated. You know, if someone dies before the sale is complete, what happens, and are we proceeding with it, or is it stopping at that point? You know, and then employees typically have anxiety and uncertainty about how they're going to pay for this business and profitably run the business without you. And so make sure that your employees have strategies and ways that they can fund your buyout, and that you have the appropriate key man insurances in place. I would say make sure that you've recruited and retained the right people for the right positions, and that you've given them coaching and other tools that they need to be successful, and have a game plan as to, you know, ongoing training and how you're going to groom the next generation of owners. Simply getting out, you know, does nothing to ensure the success of the business moving forward. And if you've built this thing, then you should have, regardless of the sale, some skin in the game in terms of wanting to see it succeed. And I would say speak with your estate planning attorney and CPA early, before you've started down this path, so that you have a plan in place as to what you're going to do with those sale proceeds, so that you can reduce any potential income taxes, capital gains taxes, and that you have a plan for the estate taxes at your death. And I would, you know, encourage business owners to consider gifting for Oregon estate tax purposes. Oregon doesn't care about lifetime gifts, and so you can pass a whole lot more money tax-free at death if you consider gifting some of those business interests to your children or other employees in trust for their benefit. You know, and really ensuring the success of the business, you know, as part of or during this sale is a true testament of your efforts and the legacy and the business you've worked so hard to build. And so it's something I would say don't rush into, and make sure that you have your team in place and, you know, and good control measures.
Absolutely. What sage advice. It looks like we're done with the questions that I had. We're coming on to an hour, and I know we have, you know, we've limited to that. But Karen, did you want to say anything at closing?
Well, just that we play one very small part in the entire plan, and understanding your company's value proposition is critical, and also your culture, because an owner needs to know both to recruit well.
Absolutely. So we've got a few minutes. I would love the one key takeaway that each of you have. Karen, I'm going to start with you. What's the one thing that you would want people to remember?
Management bench. You know, get a good team early on, mentor them, mold them to the culture of the company so everyone's aligned successfully.
Perfect. Layla, what's your one takeaway?
Discuss your goals and the plan with your children and family. If there's going to be a fight, have it now while everyone's alive and competent. Take a look at your estate planning documents every 3 years or so, and make sure that they accurately reflect your wishes. Remember, we can't fix your documents once you're dead. And so your, you know, financial, estate tax, business succession planning cannot be done in isolation from your business and personal and financial goals.
Yeah, great advice. Nick, what's your one takeaway that you want everyone to learn?
You know, the one takeaway is just give yourself time, because with time comes options, and that's really what we're looking for, is options.
Absolutely. And I wanted to put this last slide up there and invite any of you to ask for the slide deck. There's great, powerful information in it. And IBTS, which is Ideal Business Transition Solutions, have been put together so it is easy for business owners. Reach out to any of them. And again, we'll share this information. Ruthie, are you back with us now?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah, any closing comments?
Well, I just thank you to all of you for this really interesting and helpful information. And we will be happy to share the slide deck out with participants in the follow-up email that we send. So if you'd like to share that, that's totally fine, Suzanne. And then the webinar is being recorded, so we'll get this up on our YouTube channel for folks to reference later on if they're interested.
Yeah, well, once again, I know IBTS group, Acumen, we all appreciate you, Ruthie and Justin and everybody at the TAO. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks to you all.
Thank you.
Have a nice day, everyone.
Bye.